Hi guys, and welcome back to another Final Fantasy VII Remake video. Now, in today's video I've got something that I found online really. I took to Twitter the other day and I found an article that was getting shared from gizmodo.com. I'll leave a link to the full article in the description. But basically it was titled Final Fantasy VII's Tifa Lockhart should have her own solo adventure. Now, I wanted to get the thoughts of obviously the community on this, so I took to Reddit, put a post up basically explaining what I'd read and wanted to get everybody's, thoughts on this. And, there was a lot of interaction within the post. A lot of people, obviously, when they seen Tifa's solo adventure, did refer to a recent Italian Senate meeting. Anyway, we'll move on. There were a few good few answers though that did come from it, so we're going to go through them today. And also, I've got a good idea of how this could be implemented within Part 2, or around Part 2. And yeah, because let's face it, she's the second lead protagonist within the story. Everybody loves a lot of backlore. I know, obviously, the people I speak to want to see a lot of fleshing out when it comes to the characters, learning more about them, getting that, obviously, that personal feeling with them, and Tifa's name should be, at the top of our list. Anyway, if you do like today's Final Fantasy VII Remake video, hit the like button, subscribe for more Final Fantasy VII Remake content, comment down below with your thoughts on this as well. With that being said, let's mosey. Right, so yeah, the article starts off by obviously talking about Tifa having her own solo adventure within the remake storytelling. And if we can take a bit of inspiration from Part 1 and Intermission, it's likely that we're going to get these little spin-off DLCs, whether it's after or during obviously the release of Part 2. We're seeing more and more these little bite-sized adventures for supporting characters have become more of a reoccurring trend within recent AAA games, from Spider-Man Morales to Gears 5, Uncharted, and of course Intermission. And we've seen Yuffie, a bit of backstory from Yuffie, which I'm sure will be expanded even more so in Part 2. But just getting to obviously control a character, getting to know her, doing the 3 or 4 chapters that we did get to use her for, it gave you a bit of a personal touch, at the end of it. But obviously you fell for her. You seen obviously she was in a bit of a predicament, and you kind of hope that obviously sooner or later in Part 2 she's going to meet up with the rest of the team. And if that's a trend-setting thing and a staplement that we're going to see within obviously the Final Fantasy VII Remake as a whole, they're obviously going to bring out other DLCs, and I think obviously character building is going to be very important to obviously for all the feels and the emotion that are going to get involved. Because I don't know about you, if I ever watch a film and they just kill off characters and you don't really know who they are, you don't get any love for that film. It's when they go into the character story, obviously getting to know what they've done previously to the moment that they're in now. And they've done that with Yuffie. I'd like to see it with Tifa. And on a tangent, I'd like to see that with other characters like Red 13, which I've covered on this channel before now. But yeah, Tifa. Now, what we do know from previous articles that Tifa did have her own chapter within the first part in Midgar. It was a special own chapter during Remake, and in the article they touch on this. They say it was created during the game's development phase. She would have had her own spotlight during the game middle section. It would have turned the attention towards her relationship with Avalanche, the crew, and also dig into her psyche and previous traumas of the hands of Shinra. But ultimately the content was cut obviously from the first installment. That would have been really interesting to see how she joined Avalanche. We know they touch base on it obviously very lightly within the remake when she talks about obviously joining up in certain parts of the game, but it would be interesting to see what made her join Avalanche, how she came across Barrett and the rest, and just see obviously the building up of that character beforehand. But we'll touch on that a little bit later, because I do believe the best opportunity for a solo adventure with Tifa does consist of obviously pre-Avalanche. And yeah, we'll look into some of the Reddit posts. Blight says you could get into stuff with Zangan and how she learned Kung Fu. You could also do scenes in between the main missions. And he's correct, and ultimately I do think that's going to be the best angle, but we'll get into more detail about that later, because obviously a lot of people want to know how she learned Kung Fu and basically how she became a badass. So yeah, Rens004 says she will have the solo adventure when Cloud ends up in the live stream, and obviously he's wheelchair bound for a few chapters. Now, in my personal opinion, obviously that's going to happen. That's not giving us any storytelling of Tifa you know, there's no character building within that. And when I think of a solo adventure, I think of obviously, you know, the way Intermission was with Yuffie, a bit of character building, a bit of storytelling, and basically just getting to know the lore of obviously that character's involvement, how she got where she was, etc, etc. And although I understand she will be the leading role whilst Cloud's going through his phase of obviously the Mako poisoning, I feel like that's not what I personally would class as a solo adventure. And Renz also mentions obviously you'll be controlling her from the Escape from Junon right up to Medeal, and I understand again for the same reasons above, it's not exactly what I am hoping for, but interesting nevertheless. Amaray also agrees with Ren's Sephiroth and dunking Cloud into the live stream. Take a fucking sip, babes. I thought that was pretty funny. And you know, there are a few suggestions that she does have a hefty amount of screen time as it is, and again, I just don't think that's what we're trying to get across here. I think we want to see obviously everything pre-Avalanche, and if I'm being honest, that's the only area that I can kind of see that they're going to flesh this out, because obviously, you know, for those who don't know who Zangan is, he's the guy who taught Tifa Kung Fu, and he was the one who saved Tifa after the Nibelheim incident all those years ago. That's the angle they've got to go off if they want Tifa's own Intermission, and that is obviously after that incident. We see her, you know, build a relationship with Zangan, because obviously her father's just died, and she's going to be all over the place, and see the fallout from that, seeing her then obviously build, learning Kung Fu, becoming a stronger person, and basically seeing that evolution over the years of obviously Tifa. And you know, it'd be interesting to see then off the back of that, her travelling to Midgar, here going through maybe a few low-level thugs to get off the streets, so to speak, and ultimately find her way to Barrett. Now, I think that would be the perfect segment to cover for Tifa, because a lot of people, obviously, and me included, think about, you know, Zangan. I think Zangan will be quite pivotal in part 2. I think he'll come to light a bit more, and, you know, the way I see it is it's obviously going to involve Tifa, so why not? Now, when we start talking about how this will be implemented, I think what we need to do is DLC with this particular case, because obviously we're going to hear a lot of storytelling when we get to Calm, talking about Nibelheim. Tifa will obviously have a lot of storytelling from that point of view. That's great, but there's not really an opportunity for it to seamlessly fit in within the story. So I think what they need to do is release part 2, and then after that release, you know, Tifa's own Intermission, so to speak, where it focuses obviously on the aftermath of Nibelheim. I think that would be the best way to tackle it. And you know, just the way Intermission worked, it obviously gave us something to do whilst we've been waiting for more information on part 2. So bringing it as DLC after part 2, you know, after part 2 is completed, give everyone a few months, you know, 4 to 5 months to complete the game, enjoy the game, absorb all the content, and then drop a Tifa Intermission, I think would be the best way to do it. And, you know, the article goes on to say, and if a Tifa game did happen, she'd be trending all over Twitter for the right reasons, and I concur with that completely. But yeah, I think that's how I feel it'll be best implemented. Let me know down in the comments what you think, how you think. Maybe there's a completely different theory that I've not thought of, that, you know, could potentially be a Tifa solo adventure. But yeah, for me, Zangan, after the aftermath, leading to obviously her joining up with Avalanche, I think would be a great, and you know what, I think you could get quite a few chapters out of that, maybe even more than Intermission, maybe double the size of Intermission. But yeah, let me know down in the comments below what you think, if you'd like to see it, if you'd like to see her own solo adventure and obviously storytelling point of view. I know a lot of people would, but I just want to get the grasp of obviously how everyone feels about that. So yeah, leave a comment down below, let me know. And as always, if you did like today's video, hit the like button, subscribe for more Final Fantasy VII Remake content, and until next time, take care.